goods we buy and the interest we pay. On top of that, he's brought in a massive carbon tax on gas, heat, and everything that is transported by truck. The consequences have been devastating. Trudeau has given us the worst inflation of any prime minister since his dad 40 years ago. And interest rates are now rising faster than at any time in Canadian monetary history. These are not just numbers. These are humans' lives that Justin Trudeau is screwing up. 2 million people forced to go to a food bank in a single month, a record-smashing number. Because the average mortgage payment is up over 150%, people are losing their homes. And because more and more people are incapable of buying homes due to these high prices, they're all clamoring to compete for a diminished supply of apartments, driving the rent up to record levels. Last month, yet another record rent increase after Trudeau promised to bring rent down. This is forcing middle-class people into homelessness. We've never had middle-class homeless crisis like that we do now today. We're talking about nurses and carpenters who live in their cars. This would have been unimaginable before Justin Trudeau, as would the tent cities we now see in every major town in our country. We learned the other day that Halifax has 30 homeless encampments. One city with 30 homeless encampments. We would never have even imagined something like that could happen in Canada before Justin Trudeau. Yet, these are the consequences of his policies, which tax, print, and borrow money, driving up the cost on everybody. It's very simple. The government is rich and the people are poor after 8 years of Justin Trudeau. And what does he do with the money? He spent $54 million on an ArriveCan app we didn't need, didn't work, and could have been designed in a weekend by a couple of IT experts. It's now under criminal investigation. He blew $1 billion on a so-called green fund, whose bureaucrats now admit it's more like the sponsorship scandal. The chair of the fund gave her own company $200,000 in grants. That too is under investigation. And now we learn that his multi-billion-dollar grants to foreign companies may be funding as many as 1,500 jobs that won't be going to Canadians, but instead to temporary foreign workers. The Poilievre government will make sure that every time the government supports jobs in Canada, it will be exclusively for Canadians. Now, the fall economic update is coming. Justin Trudeau must reverse the inflationary policies that have driven people out of their homes, driven interest rates up, and caused mass despair and misery. So our specific demands are as follows. 1, we're calling on Trudeau to cancel his planned quadrupling of the carbon tax. You heard that right. Trudeau plans to quadruple the carbon tax. I will axe the tax, but in the meantime, until such time as we can have a carbon tax election that I will win, I propose a compromise. No more hikes. Don't quadruple the tax, Mr. Trudeau. People can't afford it. 2, bring down interest rates and inflation by balancing the budget. A year ago, Mr. Trudeau had promised a balanced budget by the year 2028. 6 months later, he announced he was breaking that promise. And all the extra spending that he piled on in the subsequent period has caused inflation to start rising again, forcing the Bank of Canada to keep interest rates high. We have $900 billion of mortgages set to renew into these higher rates over the next 3 years. We have an emergency on our hands to bring rates down before those mortgages renew. So I'm calling on Justin Trudeau to balance the budget so that we can bring down inflation and interest rates. Finally, my third demand is for the government to adopt my plan to build homes, not bureaucracy. Justin Trudeau has a gigantic photo op fund where he sends his minister on a traveling circus, giving out grants to local politicians in exchange for them giving him credit for housing that was already going to be built. The evidence is that this fund is not building any new homes because housing starts are actually down since the program came into place. What's happening is the money is going to build more bureaucracy. We don't need more bureaucracy. We need a simple mathematical formula that incentivizes cities to get out of the way, speed up permits, free up land to build, build, build. Let's require municipalities permit 15% more home building per year, every year, in order to get federal money. Those that beat the target should get a bonus. Those that miss it should get a fine. This incentive will clear the way and speed up permits so that we can build, build, build. After 8 years of Trudeau, we have the fewest homes per capita in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. Let's get building now so that our youth, our working class, and our newcomers can put roof overhead. This is common sense. The common sense of the common people united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you.
We'll now have time for questions from the floor.
Fakir from the Canadian Press. What do you say to people from Muslim and Arab communities in Canada who are calling on Israel to stop its war in the Gaza Strip to save the lives of innocent Palestinians, including thousands of children who are themselves casualties of the Hamas?
I think the end of your question was the most important part. Hamas is once again savaging the Palestinian people, attacking innocent civilians in Gaza. Hamas broke the ceasefire with its unprovoked attack on October 7th, and Hamas has made it clear that it will not accept a ceasefire, that it will go on seeking genocide against the people of Israel while oppressing the people of Gaza. We must defeat the Hamas terrorists, and we must stand up against the terrorist sponsors in Tehran. Let's be clear here. The tyrants of Tehran are behind this war. They're the ones that coordinated it. They're the ones that paid for it. What we need to do here in Canada is ban the terrorist group, the IRGC, which has 700 agents operating in Canada who can legally raise money, recruit, and terrorize Persian and Jewish Canadians. I've called on Trudeau to ban the IRGC, and so far he refuses, allowing these terrorists to operate, these IRGC, Iranian-backed terrorists, to operate with impunity on our soil, putting our people at risk. A common-sense conservative government will ban the IRGC.
Thank you. Next question.
Oh, thanks. Good afternoon. Chris Corota with CTV. The Liberals have accused the Conservatives of obstruction and have now looked to the NDP to get the bill passed quicker. Do the Conservatives not support the proposed efforts to crack down on anti-competitive practices and offer a GST break on rentals? Can you explain why or why not?
Justin Trudeau can pass any bill he wants. He's got a majority in his coalition with the NDP. So it's a complete distraction. Trudeau is trying to distract from all that he's broken. He's doubled the rent, given us the worst food price inflation in 40 years, and now he wants to quadruple the carbon tax. Quadruple the carbon tax at a time like this. Instead of trying to distract with disinformation like that, Trudeau should cancel his plan to hike the tax. He should balance the budget to reverse the inflation and interest rate hikes he's caused so that Canadians can afford to eat, heat, and house themselves.
Thanks. Next question.
Good afternoon, Cameron Mahler, CBC. If you could please answer in English and French. With the rising number of civilians, including children, killed in Gaza, should Israel be doing more to ensure innocent people are not killed?
Our view is that Israel has the right to defend itself in accordance with international law. And we call on, I'd like to offer my full condemnation of Hamas for using Palestinian civilians as human shields. Hamas's goal, it has two goals. One is to kill as many Israelis as possible, and the second goal of Hamas is to see as many Palestinians die as possible. This is a terrorist death cult that is determined to maximize the death and suffering of both Palestinians and Israelis. Hamas is in violation of international law by using human shields and by using hospitals in order to shelter its terrorists in the middle of a war that it started. So all of the world should join together in condemning Hamas for the appalling lawlessness and the breaking of international law in which it is engaged.
Thank you. Next question.
All right, this is Khaled Mansour from Omni TV. So what specific measures do you want to see on Tuesday's fall economic update?
One, we want the Prime Minister to cancel his plans to quadruple the carbon tax. Two, we want the Prime Minister to announce a plan to balance the budget to bring down interest rates and inflation so that Canadians can afford to eat, heat, and house themselves. And three, we want the Prime Minister to adopt my common sense plan to build homes and not bureaucracy so that our youth can afford a roof overhead.
Thank you. Next question.
My name is Joe from Cambridge Today. Can you speak to the crisis international students are facing? There's a lot of pressure being put on local food banks and kind of community tables. A lot of times they're kind of placed in precarious housing situations. Can you kind of speak to that and maybe what your government could do to prevent that from happening?
Thank you. Very important question. Justin Trudeau has allowed total chaos in the international student system. And this is really an area where Sean Fraser, who was then the immigration minister, should be held to account. He allowed corrupt consultants and phony universities and colleges to bring students here on false pretense. Those students now come here, find out that their educational institution is a fraud, that they don't have a home, that they can't pay their bills, and they're stuck going to the food bank. Under Fraser and Trudeau, international students have been forced to live under bridges and on streets, beg for food, sell themselves into prostitution and gangsterism, overdose on drugs. They came here with a dream that turned into a nightmare. My common sense plan would verify that every student who comes here has A, a real admission letter from a real educational institution, B, a home that they can identify with an address before they arrive, and C, a way to pay their bills. That is, either proof that they have enough savings to get them through their time here, or a job that will provide them with adequate wages. That will ensure that the students who arrive can eat, heat, and house themselves, that they're actually coming to study and get a real education, and then we can make their visit here a success, and in many cases, hopefully allow them to stay here and become Canadians.
Thank you. This will be the final question.
Bonjour, Hugo Lévesque de Radio-Canada. Qu'est-ce que ça vous dit du gouvernement que la cohorte donne raison aux fabricants de plastique, l'Alberta et la Saskatchewan?
J'ai pas entendu la question clairement.
Excuse. Qu'est-ce que ça vous dit du gouvernement que la cohorte donne raison aux...
Encore, le gouvernement Trudeau a été trouvé inconstitutionnel. La Cour a dû indiquer que le gouvernement Trudeau a exercé trop de pouvoir en essayant de bannir des produits qui sont d'ailleurs sécuritaires et nécessaires. Donc, le Parti conservateur, guidé par le gros bon sens, accepte que oui, il faut protéger l'environnement, il faut recycler les produits plastiques. Mais bannir tous les plastiques, ce n'est pas pratique ni constitutionnel, et il n'y a pas de preuve que ces produits-là sont dangereux ou bien pour les familles ou bien pour l'environnement. La solution de gros bon sens, c'est le recyclage. Et nous avons les ingénieurs et les entreprises à travers le pays qui sont experts en recyclant le plastique pour qu'on puisse le réutiliser une fois après l'autre, même pour des générations. C'est ça la solution de gros bon sens, au lieu de bannir des produits dont on a besoin. Et j'ajouterais une autre chose, si on met en place une interdiction totale sur le plastique, ça va radicalement augmenter le coût de nourriture, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de nourriture qui est préservée par le plastique. Et si on n'a pas de plastique, cette nourriture ne va pas durer aussi longtemps. évidemment, il va y avoir beaucoup plus de gaspillage et ça va coûter plus cher pour aller faire l'épicerie. Donc, il faut un peu de gros bon sens en protégeant l'environnement et en même temps permettant les produits qui sont nécessaires pour fournir la qualité de vie dont on a besoin. Do you want that in English as well? The one in plastic? All right. Once again, Justin Trudeau has been found to have broken the Constitution with his unscientific plastics ban. He has failed to provide any evidence that this ban would have any benefit for the environment or the health of Canadians. Trying to ban all plastics might sound good as a headline, but how are we going to preserve our food? You don't want to have any plastic packaging. Well, what if the food then goes bad 3 or 4 days faster? How much more food is going to go into the garbage can? That costs money. And that money will be paid by yet higher food prices, which are already rising faster than any time in 40 years. As the court pointed out, none of this is backed up by any science or evidence. The answer, the common sense solution, is more recycling. We can recycle plastics. We have the best engineers in the world. Recycling the plastic means those molecules can be used over and over again without causing waste and while protecting the health of our people and the safety of our environment. That is a common sense solution that doesn't violate the Constitution and will allow for affordable, healthy living for Canadians. Thank you very much.